guess Fung Brothers, not the brand, have been doing entertainment together for a while now, for years, since college especially, and then we grew up rapping, and he's, and when he started rapping, I started rapping, so we've been basically rapping together for a long time, and doing performances. But the Fung Brothers, that brand, started about 1.5 years ago when we moved down to LA.
When we were in Seattle, we were doing it separately and together on like specific occasions, but it had never really necessarily occurred to us to like brand it Fung Brothers, because we were always just like Andrew Fung, David Fung. People would call us the Fung Brothers, but that wasn't like an official name. And then when we came down, we're like, oh, that would be like a really good way to do it. We could just perform together and brand most of our gigs together too. And it's also, I think it's more dynamic too for like the audience, and maybe especially if you people grew up with siblings, maybe they can relate to sort of the relationship.
It's a little different, I think, than one. It's easier. We have two minds working for the same thing. We already spend all the time together. We live together, so great. We work together, and then it's more distinct. You know, like it's different for people. Like, where are there two other Asian brothers that do comedy and rap together? We had a lot of Asian friends in college, but yeah, where we grew up from up until high school, it was like a predominantly white, like bluish collar town. So we got a really good feel of like what, you know, it was a very American experience. There was nothing about it that we did all the sports growing up. We were, you know, trying to date white girls and doing all this, like, you know. And then we moved down to LA to do entertainment, and then, you know, Koreatown, downtown LA is where we moved to first, and it's just like a bunch of Korean businesses, and it's crazy.
I would say more of the shock came in college though, and I feel like that's most people, like if they grow up in a predominantly like white area and just non-Asian area. College is just basically every college across America. You could be like at like Northwestern Wisconsin, and there's like a ton of Asians there.
Asians at every college.
There's nothing that Asians love more than going to college. Maybe that's the number one thing.
UC Irvine, like more than 50% Asian. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I think in college it was really interesting because we came from a town where everyone's trying to be in the NFL. A lot of people are trying to be in the NBA. So a lot of people are really chasing professional sports dreams. It's not like people are thinking about like becoming the next Bill Gates. Like, it's not the type of town.
Not a lot of nerds.
Yeah. So it was interesting. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. But then as far as moving down goes, yeah, I mean it's been crazy. And now we live in the San Gabriel Valley, which is literally over 50% Asian.
Most cities, yeah.
And we're talking about even specific. It's not like Irvine. Irvine is like I think Asians that have had some time and desire to assimilate a certain amount and acculturate to American standards. And San Gabriel Valley is not that way necessarily, but that's why we love it.
That's why we out there in the streets. Being Asian American, it's finding that sweet spot where you feel comfortable with both sides. We know a lot of people in our area growing up that were forced to choose, and they were choosing either like their fobby traditional culture, or they were like going to be like whitewashed, you know. And to me it was sad, because I was like, oh man, you don't got to be this or that, you know. Like, you don't have to like whitewash yourself and forget all this cool Asian stuff. And then I was like, well, you don't have to be stuck back in Asia, you know, like kind of thing. So for us, it took a while, you know. Of course, growing up, we probably went through certain phases where we kind of wanted to be a little bit more black or wanted to be a little bit more white. But then, you know, finally more in college, we kind of became more comfortable and found that spot where we're able to take what we like, the positive things of each culture, and then blend them together. And so we find Asian American is what we like.
I actually think where we are right now, Diamond Jamboree Plaza in Irvine is like really Asian America.
No.
Like, this is really Asian American. But it's a specific brand of Asian America. Like in NorCal, San Francisco, where they have like descendants of people who worked on the railroads, they also have Asian American culture. It's a little bit different than this, but I think it's still kind of similar.
And it depends on also if you want to take on more of like your specific ethnicity, hyphen American. Like, I think some people feel more Korean American, or some people feel more Chinese American, more Vietnamese American than they do as a whole.
Like a Pan-Asian, yeah. So.
Which is okay, but you know, either way, you're still taking things you like from each culture and kind of blending them together, and that's the balance is really what's beautiful, and it's really cool. So, and I think that demographic of people that's growing and realizing that it's only going to increase in time, you know. We're not afraid of blending like our Chinese heritage with like and mixing it with American stuff. It's weird, you know, people I think it's actually very un-Chinese what we're doing. It's like we're rapping about Chinese food. Rap is like so un-Chinese. It's like this Western art form. To say actually black, like came from Black American art form, you know, specifically. And then we're blending it with, you know, traditional Asian food, or talking about these things that we like. And, so
actually, I think in a way, and I'm not saying this like in a way to be like, oh, like look at what we did, but whatever. I think some of our material actually wasn't in the prior range of what was considered Asian American. Like, I think we even, like, this is the generally accepted canon of what's Asian American, and like we even like it like a little bit further than that, like pulling from really polar opposites. Like I rap in Mandarin a little bit, like not as much anymore, but like we used to try to rap in Mandarin, which is like a language that people in China don't even really rap in, like a little bit, but not really. So I think it's even it's difficult to say. I mean, it's weird because you know, if you represent the San Gabriel Valley is such an overwhelmingly Chinese area. It's not even Asian American in some ways. So I think that we include aspects that even people who are not familiar with the Asian American identity and only familiar with the Chinese identity can still relate to it. So it's a little fobbier actually than Asian American. So it's like Asian American plus, I guess. Asian American, yeah, 1.5. That's how I would say it.
Asian American 2.0.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll work with that. So,
yeah, because the thing is, like, it's interesting because Asian America, right? We have this concept that's been developed by academia and through people around us. But what a lot of times people don't realize, they don't think about it, maybe they realize it, there's a constant influx of immigrants from Asia every day. And it's only, like, actually going to increase as much as America allows it, basically. As many visas is the issue, people are trying to come over. So Asian America is actually always changing, because it's not like other immigrant groups, they like came in a rush and then that was the group, like Italian Americans, like Irish Americans, they came in a rush and there was no like constant influx of Irish Americans every year after that. For Asian Americans, there will be forever into this country. So I think that actually makes the narrative even more dynamic and have so many facets. It's so complicated, I guess, in a good way.
And it, like we said, it can be very complicated, and that's why a lot of people choose one or the other. And we understand why people do that, but if you take the time to think about it and really find it, it's really cool.
Well, my sister's an engineer. Mm-hmm. She went to Stanford, so my parents got one. They got one, a model minority kid. They did it the way.
Go Tracy.
Go Tracy. Thank you so much, because I don't know, we such a
taking
disgrace.
The burden off us a little bit. We're still the sons, so we have to prove something. You know, I think it's up to any kid who's not gonna follow the traditional route and go against, you know, what their parents believe or do something new. It's on you to do it well enough or have the passion to show your parents and convince them that this is a good move. I think they always saw that we had the passion for it, and you know, thank God that they were liberal enough to let us experience and dabble in that stuff growing up. And then they saw us come down here, and I think they were skeptical, like, oh, maybe it's kind of like a grad school type thing, like he'll be back in like 2-3 years, you know, they're just gonna like try it out, or like maybe they'll find like a good job down there. They still have their degrees.
Still pursue our PhD.
Yeah, still maybe eventually go to UCLA and write a dissertation on entertainment, which is like my dad's dream, but not happening. Well, maybe, I don't know. But we've done enough, and we've gotten enough press, especially being on Chinese television helps your Chinese parents understand. And then also having their friends, kids, maybe like ask about us and talk about what we're doing.
Well, basically, you have to give your parents something to brag about.
Exactly.
Because Asian parents, they really like bragging about their kids and comparing them, stacking them up against each other.
Give them something to brag about. Just anything. Just it could even be being in like the Chinese American newspaper. Like, but if that's what your parents care about and their friends care about, and that's what's relevant to their like 10, 15 friends, that's all you need, man. So
that's our advice to any kids who want to get out there.
It's on
like,
you. Give them something.
Quickly get in the in a publication of your parents' home language that they read immediately. Yeah.
Or get their kids, their friends' kids, somehow jealous or talking about you.
Because basically our parents, friends, kids like our videos, so
Yeah.
it helps a lot.
Thank you.
I feel like the most comments I get are actually not from people from Asia. People from Asia, I think, especially if they're in America or they study the English language, there's a little bit of sense of, like, yeah, we know, like, we come from this and you guys are here and, like, we're really different. But I do think, like, maybe some, like, really liberal Asian Americans, they still, like, feel really conflicted because they're like, we're just American like everybody else. Why do you guys have to keep emphasizing that we're Asian?
Right.
And I think that is, I understand where that train of thought comes from. That was actually a very specific period in Asian American history, like the assimilate model and all the things that come from that. And I'm not, whatever, everybody can feel how they want to feel about it. But we always just let people know, we own up to it. Like, it's almost like martial arts. Like people say, oh, like, I used to be kind of like, I didn't know how to feel when people were like, oh, do you know Kung Fu? Like, that sounds like a stereotypical question, right? But that's actually one of the greatest exports that Asian people, or specifically for Kung Fu, Chinese, have ever created. As far as like a cultural export that people all around the country, or around the world, would have known nothing, but they'd never even had orange chicken one time, but they love, maybe they even practice wushu or something because they watched a Bruce Lee movie and it touched them so deeply, these Eastern philosophies. And a lot of the Eastern philosophies that form Kung Fu still inform Asia to a certain extent to this day, So I think that American, the way it's been presented has made it cheesy. It's sort of like dragons and tigers. It's like that stuff is cheesy, not because it's actually cheesy in the world, but within the context of our lives, of how we've been raised to be like, hey man, like what are you saying I don't know Kung Fu for?
I think the best is not to pretend like people are not different, but to understand the differences and love each other for it and embrace it. That's, people want you. I'm never gonna be a better white person than a white person, even if I try. I tried. I'm not a better white person. So I owned up to part of the culture that I love, and I think the way I look at it is like people are like, oh, don't define me by my ethnicity. I'm not defined by my ethnicity. Not everybody is, but let's be honest, like your ethnicity helps define your culture, and your culture helps define you. So that's like indirectly, yes, it does impact where, if I'm Chinese, I probably came from a Chinese culture. That Chinese culture is impacting my life and the things I like and my life experiences. Cool, that has helped define me. So in a way,
it's almost like, it kind of comes back to that stigma, because it's like people wouldn't shy away from those stereotypes so much if they didn't have it embedded in their head that it was bad to be that stereotype.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, I don't eat rice every day. Like, you always have to defend yourself when you're growing up. Oh, I don't eat rice every day.
What's wrong with eating rice?
What if you do? Like, I know I had a lot of white friends that ate like steak and potatoes literally like 6 times a week.
They eat mac and cheese?
But they loved it. They were like proud of that. They were like, yeah, I'm a steak and taters type of guy. And it was like, but then because we're in America, we feel like we need to shy away from like, yeah, I'm a rice every day type of guy. You never hear anybody own that as so strong, but maybe we should, because maybe that's real. Like I ate rice probably every meal that I was home with my parents, like for sure, rice or noodles, yeah. So, it's real to me.
Nothing wrong with it.
I like
just
it.
Don't,
right
just,
guy.
I just don't, I think a lot of people have an inferiority complex.
About their own culture.
That's basically it. It's like you think your culture is inferior, so you shy away from it. And we're just like, well, just don't think it's inferior and
like,
just make it better.
People
like
making fun of our eyes, like people are like, oh, well, what do you mean? Like, What do you mean my eyes?
No, look at my
I'm like,
eyes, seriously.
My eyes are way more slanted than a white person's eyes.
Like, look at me. Like, doesn't happen to other white, like when I
Yeah.
smile, they just close.
And I think,
can
like-
still see.
Yeah, I remember there's this player in the MLB. I forgot his name, but he's half he's half Chinese and half Peruvian. And he came from Peru, and he's in the MLB. And I remember during one of the on-camera interviews, there was one of his Hispanic teammates was behind him doing this, right? And a lot of people, of course, media went, not media went really crazy, but some people were like really questioning him. And he goes, I'm not ashamed of my eyes. I really like the way my eyes look. He's like, I think my eyes look sexy. And then I was just like, yeah, like that's how people should look at it, because, I mean, shit. I mean, you got round eyes, you got small eyes, whatever. Like, but I think if you buy into that standard that round eyes is better, that's gonna be like, you're gonna start to be like, what do you mean, like?
And I don't think everybody's on that level where they feel confident enough to defend themselves on that level, and I understand. So, but it's gonna get to that point, and with more and more people like him or other proud, like tons of all these YouTubers or like us, we're gonna contribute, and that's gonna eventually build into people who don't feel that way anymore. But I think for this time being, there's still gonna be a lot of people who feel inferior, which is too bad, but I mean, it's life. It takes steps.
It takes steps, when
Takes
you
time.
are basically a minority group that's entering like a dominant culture of anywhere. I mean, this happens, if it was the flip reverse, like, let's say like non-Asian people were immigrating to Asian countries, it would be the same way. Like people would wish they had like smaller, like slant area eyes. And so it's just whatever is the dominant narrative at that moment,
A rule we have is that if you're gonna do an Asian accent, you've got to try to be as accurate as possible to us. I'm not amazing at accents. I got a couple accents I can do pretty well, so I try to stick to those. Or if I try a different one, I do try hard to be as accurate as possible. We don't take cheap shots really at different groups that are not involved in the skit or have nothing to do with the skit. Like we won't just throw in like a jab at Indian people out of nowhere. Like that's totally unfair. No one should do that. But like, yeah, if it's a skit about Chinese people or Korean people or Vietnamese people, then yeah, just try to be accurate. But yeah, in the end, still poking fun.
I think a lot of it where it comes from, and yeah, always there's gonna be like, not everybody's gonna be happy with what you say, but I think as long as it comes from a place where it's more about understanding our differences, then it's fine, because people are different and stuff like that. So
Dude, people are different. That's the basis of this interview. If nothing else, people are different.
because like it comes back to differences being too complex to digest. So we just try to like put a facade of like sameness on everything.
Yeah.
And try to like blow everything over and be like, oh, what do you mean? What do you need to say your race for? Like, what do you like? And that goes for Asian and minorities saying, oh yeah, this white girl said to me today, and then some white guy's like, hey, why'd you have to mention she was white? Like, you know what I mean? I mean, it works both ways. So
It matters.
it's noteworthy, but it's about getting the dialogue and discussion to a level where everybody feels comfortable taking it there. Because if people feel like other people are so powerful in that discussion and they're not powerful, or somebody's more educated than them or has more blah, 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 understanding, like, then like that's when feelings get hurt. And I think that dynamic of what I just talked about is so complex that our generation just tries to like pretend like it doesn't exist, which is good and it's bad. I think I've seen, some organizations, I've seen like entire organizations get by on this like idea of sameness, and it works to a certain extent, and then they like just try to gloss over differences, and people are like kind of very like hushed about anything that does come up. But I don't know, I guess for me, and I'm not gonna judge, how, if you can make it work, do it however you do it, but like I'm always like, just put it out, and then things will get better eventually, like long term. Like it's all about addressing systemic issues versus like band-aids on things. That's how I feel.
Systemic issues. If you take one thing away from this interview, it's systemic issues. That's the bottom line.
That's
Yeah.
really what the kids want to hear about.
Systemic
not
issues.
about cool things, not about dancing, and not about how to be funny. Just really systemic issues that affect
People are
that affect
different and
society.
systemic issues. All right, cool. We're done.
Yeah.
Generally, pretty much all positive from the people who watched it. there's an article in the LA Times that came out, which we were like heavily featured in. And then that, since being in the LA Times, anything that's in the LA Times is like under
Scrutiny.
really heavy scrutiny. So we did get a little bit of interesting comments and feedback from that. In the end, we believe what we're doing, and we believe we're being fair to what we are and to what other people want to see us as. So we're doing us, and we know that we're positive people, and we're pushing for the greater good of the community, the world, everybody. So they can like kind of hate on us or like criticize us, but
We got some haters.
yeah, but it's like
honestly,
whatever.
it's good. Like I feel like, you know, we listen to a lot of rap music because we're rappers, and that's kind of just, and rap music's all about having haters. Like rappers love having haters. Like, and I never really understood what that meant, because when we were in Seattle, maybe we weren't doing it big enough that we actually even had anybody talking about us, good or bad. So we had no haters, and I was always wondering, like, man, when are we gonna have haters? Like, I just want to have some haters, please. And then finally, after 626 came out, and the things that happened from that, like the LA Times article and stuff like that, then we finally started getting some haters. So I was like, man, that's crazy. Because I actually realized that hating on someone takes a lot of energy. Because that's someone breaking from their normal routine of their life. You know, they have this thing that they do, the world they live in.
They have to get on the computer, read the entire article, like think of things they don't like about you, think about you, watch your videos, come up with something that they think you stand for, and then tell you that
get
they don't
furious
like
about it, work themselves in a whirlwind.
And then write like maybe 4 paragraphs about you and how you think it's how they hate on you. So it's thank you, you know, and it means that you're doing something that matters. The truth is, if no one hates on you, you're probably not doing anything that's like on that level yet, where you're getting, you know, you're getting shine for it, or it's not maybe as meaningful.
Well, success breeds hate, and so yeah,
We're not like successful, but like we're getting there.
Bring it on! I love more haters.
A couple music videos.
A couple
actually.
music videos. Should we say what they're called? Say what they're called.
Nah, it doesn't matter.
It's not gonna be out for. I mean,
it's just one's called Friend Zone, one's called Boba Life. That's all we need to say.
the Friend Zone one, you can kind of guess what that's
It's
about.
not about what you think it is. It is. There's
Just you guys sitting in a restaurant, actually. Whole
just
time.
talking. Yeah. There's we actually have a web series out right now on one of the premium YouTube channels. We got to shoot a show in Texas. That was pretty fun and interesting, getting interesting feedback from that. But definitely check that out if anybody's interested in seeing some urban Asian guys out of their element in Podunk, Texas, doing some very like cowboy things, which was really cool, and the people were nice, by the way. We love Texas.
We just did a spot on Epic Meal Time. They have another show called Epic Chef coming out, and we did a spot on that. And it was really crazy because we're sitting on the judging panel, and next to me was Jeannie Mai, who's like a television personality from
Style TV.
Style Network. But I used to watch her back when she was on AZN TV, so this is like way, way, way back. And then this other dude named Tim Ferriss. Now, Tim Ferriss wrote this book called 4 Hour Work Week, which is, this is crazy because I did a book report on this. Maybe, I want to say either my freshman year in college or like in high school. And then I hadn't thought about him in a long time. And then I met him and I was sitting right next to him like judging food with Tim Ferriss. This guy's like mega successful, but he's like in a different world. So like, it was funny because we're at the shoot for Epic Mealtime. Literally nobody knows who he is. Like some people know he like wrote a book or something like that, but literally like in a certain like tech world, like, because he's also like a venture capitalist in Palo Alto or like San Francisco or whatever. Like he's like a really big celebrity, but not in like the entertainment world. So it was crazy because I was like, oh man, like, because my family's in tech, and I kind of knew who he was, and I was like, oh man, this guy's like he knows Steve Jobs or knew Steve Jobs and his people. So anyway, he's really rich. Like nobody knew or nobody
Tim
cared.
Ferriss, rich.
Tim Ferriss.
If you take anything away from this interview, it's
Tim Ferriss is rich. Yeah.
Tim Ferriss is ballin'. Shout out to Tim, he's cool.
But it's so crazy though, because it just reminded me of like when you're in the entertainment world, it is such like so entertainment focused. Everybody follows the same things, so you can like say things that are relevant to like 50 people in a room, not realizing that like 95% of the other parts of the country don't care about it. You know what I mean? So it kind of was like, oh man, like it's just like everybody's in their own bubble, kind of. But
Like-
some bubbles are bigger than others, you know.
Yeah.